Hi, and welcome back to the Book Beat. We have Karen Kondazian. Did I pronounce right? Karen
Perfect.
Okay, in studio with us, and she is an award-winning theater actress. You have been in over 50 television shows. I saw your demo reel on the IMDb. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Good at those foreign accents. You've been on Frasier, Murder, She Wrote. You've got a really impressive resume. But now you've done something different with this first novel, right? Which is based on a true story.
Yes, it is.
How did you learn about Charlotte Parkhurst, and who was she?
I learned about this woman, Charlotte Parkhurst, Charlie,
Yeah.
when I was in college. I read a fascinating article about her in Cosmopolitan magazine.
Cosmo, yeah.
And it was about wild women of the Old West. And I thought to myself, how in God's name could a woman pass as a man for 30 years
Amazing story.
around macho stagecoach drivers, because she was a famous stagecoach driver for Wells Fargo?
Huh.
How did she do that?
How did she do it?
And so, well, you thought about it, and, it would pass every decade or so, I think about it. And then I had my parents passed, and I had some feelings, and I thought, I want to dedicate something to them. So I just thought, well, all right, I'll see what happens. And 6 years and 27 drafts later, the book was done.
Wow.
And she's buried in Watsonville, California. She was an amazing person. And again, the interest, the curiosity of finding out my questions of how she passed and why she did what she did.
Why did she disguise herself as a man? How did this come about?
Okay, now, if you look at my book, you'll see that the book says it's inspired by a true story, a novel.
It's a novel.
But it's inspired by a true story.
Why did you decide to create a novel instead of write a book about her life?
Because we only know about 4 things about her.
Oh, there wasn't much.
There's not a lot of research on her, other than that she was apparently the first woman to vote in America as a man.
Well, that's really interesting. I was thinking that should shake things up a bit, right? I mean, has been any reaction to that?
Well, it's on her tombstone. I think that we can't prove that, because maybe there were other women who were dressed as men who voted too.
That's a good point, yeah.
But she voted for General Grant, and the interesting thing was she died of mouth cancer from too much chewing tobacco and cigars and liquor.
Wow.
And so did General Grant. He died of the same thing. So it's interesting that of the one person she voted for,
Yeah.
Ironic.
And she was about 67 when she died,
That's
right?
exactly right. And that was old for that age.
Right,
She was born in 1812 and died in 78.
Now you mentioned, and of course I do know it's a novel, so I'm not sure if this is, forgive me, I'm not sure if these are facts or not, but in the material that you sent, you said early on, though, she fell in love with a runaway slave and had his child. Is this true? Is this what happened? Or
I went to Watsonville and talked to a lot of people who their great-grandparents knew. She's, the great heroine of Watsonville. And her middle name is Darky. And that, of course, in that era, pre-Civil War, was a black person. And so there are rumors that she fell in love with a black man. There's no proof.
And did that lead somehow to her?
Well, then you asked the question about why she put on men's clothes.
Right.
What I did was, there's no answer to that question that we know of factually. So part of the novelization was I took all the rumors about her and I novelized them. And one of the rumors is just what we were talking about. And so she was in an orphanage many years of her life. She ran away from Boston. And I don't want to give the story away, but because of a terrible thing in her life, some of her family being killed. She put on men's clothes to go to California from Boston and to find the killer.
Right, and that's intriguing. I mean, that would make me want to read the book, so don't, I wouldn't worry about that. My producer's saying, hold up the book.
Yes, there it is. There's the cover. People ask, is that her? Well, there were no photographs of her.
Right.
But what I did was I took all the facts that I knew and found about her, of what she looked like, and then we put together an image that as close to her as possible.
So what are some things that we do know about her? When in your research, what did you uncover that we do know for sure?
Well, she was a really famous stagecoach driver, a whip. That's what a whip is. For Wells Fargo. And the thing is, she was with all these macho guys.
Yeah.
And, one of the things
You asked a great question, which was, well, when you're with a lot of guys.
How do you pee?
Yeah, how did she?
Because they all peed together.
Right.
How did she have her period?
Yeah.
How did all these things that women have to put up with?
Especially in those conditions, in that age, yeah.
Yes, I mean, you couldn't, and how did she cover her body? She didn't have whiskers, obviously. So my imagination, I figured she must have, part of her clothes in the morning, getting dressed, was she went out in the garden and put dirt all over her face. What else, how else could she pass? 30, this is what's interesting. When she died, she had carried this off for 30 years, and they were getting her ready for the funeral, and they went, oh my God.
Is that when they discovered?
That's it. The famous Charlie Parkhurst is a woman who's had a child.
Huh.
And so people came from all over, San Francisco and everywhere, to check her body. They couldn't believe it. And the New York Times, there's an obituary in the back of the book, her New York Times obituary, and they were asking for relatives to come claim her body.
Nobody showed up?
Nobody showed up. Nobody knew.
And this was in 1879 that she died, right?
Yes.
And so is that sort of, when you were researching it, was that these obituaries, was that a major source of, for your research?
Yes, but the obituary kind of appeared, as I didn't even realize there would be one. And it kind of appeared magically. I have to tell you, there was a lot of serendipity around this book.
I'll bet, yeah.
I mean, you were talking about agents. I mean, a literary agent, book publishers in the last very interesting interviews. And, for instance, I had finished the book and I thought, oh God, now I have to send out proposals and all of that. And one day I got an email from a friend in Transylvania that I hadn't heard from in 30 years. And he said, I was good friends with Tennessee Williams, and he had taken some photographs of me on Tennessee Williams.
I saw that photo on the web. That was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Kissing me.
Yeah.
And so he said, would you, there's this book, and they want to use this as a cover. And would you call this publisher? So I did. The publisher asked about me. I told him, oh, this book is interesting. Send me a couple of chapters. I did. And then all of a sudden he said, send me the book. And the next thing I knew, he was offering to buy it.
Amazing.
So the book has been blessed in a lot of ways.
Right. Do you feel you had any help from
Charlie? Let me tell you, once in a while when I was writing, I felt like I was channeling because things came to me that very odd.
That you wouldn't have known, but they felt right.
Yes. And I used to visit her grave all the time and say, listen, please forgive me. I hope, but I hope when I'm writing, I have some bookmarkers with information on it, and the book hadn't been published yet, and so I left bookmarkers for her.
Did you ask her, does this feel right? Does that feel right?
Anyway, it's funny, it's fun, it's very fascinating to write about someone who there is some information, but, the rest of it that you have to conjure.
Right. So were there any other facts that you did find out that we know are true about her? Because I'm asking because she is such a the whole story is just so fascinating, and because your book is based on truth. Anything else that?
Well, again, the orphanage is true, the stagecoach driving, the voting, and she'd had a child.
And Did anybody ever track that child, or did that child ever show up?
I think the child must have died because, again, they did do research trying to find family and relatives, and I think the child must have died.
So when she died, and this was huge discovery was made, I would imagine there was a flurry of trying to find out more, right? Is that what happened?
Yes, and nobody could find out anything. She had hidden it so well. Of course, her being born in the East, and her coming to California, probably...
People left their past behind.
That's it. One of the wonderful things about being in the West was you could reinvent yourself.
You could.
By the way, may I say, I don't know how many of you out there know this, that during the Civil War there were almost 500 women who disguised themselves as men.
Really?
And fought in the Civil War.
That many? I didn't know that.
Yes.
I'd heard of one or two, but I had no idea.
There were a lot, and they found, of course, some dead bodies, and then some of them just went home and had children and got married, and but a lot of women, women couldn't have dreams then.
That's
Only
true.
Men could have dreams. You could be 2 or 3 things as a woman in the pre-modern day. So the women who were rebels or free spirits, like I am, like maybe you are,
Could be.
chose to choose their own life, their own way of living. And I think it must have been very lonely, though, for Charlie, because, imagine what it would be like out there to not have any friends, to be able to tell your heart to someone.
Right. And you say, though, that she did have a love affair. A housekeeper fell in love with her, or did you invent that?
She did have a housekeeper, but I did invent that. And she had a child, so obviously she must have been in love with someone. She has 2 love affairs in it. And one of them is with a man, and one of them, a woman loves her. She was amazing. She was very brave. And, my book, The River That Runs Through the Book, is about forgiveness. And I really talk about that in the book. And my question to all of you is, if someone destroyed your family horribly, could you forgive them? And if you couldn't, how far might you go in terms of revenge?
And why did this question interest you, fascinate you?
Personally, forgiveness has always been an issue in my life, and I think probably for everyone. Some in a smaller degree, others in a larger degree. Forgiveness is very hard. It's what the Bible is all about.
It's one of the hardest things.
It's one of the hardest things, and so she has to take this journey of forgiveness.
So in writing a novel, you get the chance to explore these things, these themes that are important in your life, right?
That's right. Forgiveness and things like, I believe that in life, all the terrible things eventually turn out to be a gift. And sometimes I believe we create the problem in a strange way because we need the gift.
To find a solution.
But we get this gift out of, you hear about people who have had terrible sicknesses. I have a friend who has ALS. In fact, the man who published the audiobook. And right now he's doing this beautiful thing where he's doing videos, diaries, and talking about it to help others. So he's taking the bad thing in his life and he's helping other people with it and turning it into a beautiful thing. And
so life throws you these challenges, and then you get the gift of the creativity.
Of making something beautiful out of it, hopefully. And, I'm may not be religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I believe, so the book has the theme of always, searching to make your life a gift to others.
And is that what you felt she did?
Yes.
Charlie did?
Oh, I think she's been an inspiration for me.
How so?
First of all, she was such a survivor. And I must tell you something. This is slightly going to answer your question. I get letters all the time I got one in particular from a woman in the Midwest who said that her husband had died, her son had tried to commit suicide, she'd lost the house, she didn't have very much insurance, so she hung out at the library and she found the book and she read it. And she said, thank you, because if Charlie could survive what she went through, she said, I can too. So, as an artist, I believe that if you put the objective in your art is to assist other people, to inspire them, to help them to transform, then it becomes a gift for others.
So you got to do this.
I got to do it through Charlie.
Through Charlie. Sounds like it was a co-creation.
She gave me the gift.
Yeah, that's so. What advice would you have to writers, to and especially to fiction writers?
Well, I tell you, everybody is frightened to write that first paragraph or the first line even. And my suggestion is to take a tape recorder or whatever and to sit down with a friend you trust and to put on Dragon software, which transcribes what you say, and to share with them an idea that you have. Or maybe it's about your family. Maybe you want to talk about your heritage or your life so that your children and your grandchildren can know who you were. And that way you don't have to worry, because what happens is the transcription will ultimately be 30 pages on the computer, and you can just put it together and begin.
So just start somewhere.
Yes, start somewhere.
Start in the middle.
And it doesn't have to be at the beginning.
No, the end, the middle, or wherever.
Start at the end and work backwards if you want.
I always say go to the most exciting part that you want to write.
That's it.
Because I learned as a journalist that you write the lead last often, because sometimes you don't know what the story is. And people struggle. I used to struggle over the lead, and no. So it all kind of comes together, doesn't it?
That's beautiful, like our lives.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for joining us. And how can people get in touch with you?
Amazon. My name is Kondazian.com. Is my
spell it?
KONDAZIAN.com, or Amazon on Barnes & Noble.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This has been The Book Beat. Join us next week. I want to thank my producer, Susan Levin, who comes up with amazing guests like the ones that you've seen tonight. I don't know how she does it, but she is the wind beneath my wings. And my brother, Rick Fleischman, who wrote the bumper music. So stay tuned to LA Talk Live, and next week, please join us, same time, same station, at LA Talk Live for The Book Beat, where we're more than just talk.